What is going on, guys? And welcome back to our Surviving Java series, and we are still decked out in this ridiculous purple outfit, and that is because I wasn't planning on the board giving us the project they did give us, which is the Amethyst project. And then when I was like messing around with the Amethyst, I have completely forgot that there's an item that we've not played with, and that is this weird attuned skulk sensor. But I can't really find a decent purpose for it. I've got a book set up to sort of list all the different things that you can actually filter the sounds out for. So when you set it to a certain signal using the book page of 15, it will actually filter it so the skulk sensor will only pick up these particular noises. And there are a couple that I could see being useful, but the only use that I can really think of it more than anything else is for trolling other players. So like when a player interacts with a chest or interacts or uses their elytra near it, it can then activate something else using redstone signals. But yeah, I was sort of just messing around with it off camera just to see what the sort of limitations were, and I can't really think of any great uses. But then again, I don't think I've used the actual skulk sensors other than for trolling people either. So either way, I think it's just a more direct route of sort of trolling people. If you're noticing any frame rate dips around here at the moment, is purely because I've got a ridiculous amount of stuff feeding through the system, and we've got Steve up there who's going to be monitoring it for us. But today we are going to be working on a auto amethyst farm. Now, not too sure how I want the farm to function, whether or not I want to set up a whole bunch of different sort of pistons being activated directly from like a main clock, or if I want it to be done by flying machines. But before I have a think about it and do testing in a creative world, I need to actually clear out an area and then sort of get the dimensions of exactly where the budding amethysts are, so then I can design a contraption for it to work. But we're going to be heading over to our industrial district here, because over here there's actually two amethyst clusters that are relatively like close to one another. So yeah, we're going to be working on these, and the first thing I'm going to have to do is sort of dig out an area for it, which is in between these two columns of iron blocks. I came over here earlier today. I was looking for amethyst clusters using chunk base, and I went to quite a few different locations, but most of them seem to be quite highly separated on the wire levels. But these two down here, if we go down, we're using 3cam obviously. Oh look, we've got a mod spawn there as well. I didn't even see this guy. What are you? Oh, you're a skelly bob. Yeah, so down here we've got two geodes that are pretty close to one another. So setting up like a wall flying machine, one sort of going vertically, we are going to be limited on how much room we've got to play with underneath them, or we can clear it out, and depending on where the actual budding blocks are and how many there is, will sort of depend on the system that I then decide to implement. But in order to do so, we are going to have to clear out an area that's wide enough to have a clearance around them. And as you can see, I've got all this lava that's going to be such a joy to work with. But I'm going to be digging down this square area here, all the way from the surface all the way down. Completely unnecessary, I know, but I do want it to have like a glass ceiling at the very top, and then we want a building to probably sit on top, and we'll probably do it in the theme of our industrial area. Now, I know our board did not say an industrial project, but this one just happened to have landed in this location for us. So what I'm going to do is jump into a time lapse of me digging this out. I'm going to see if I can rope anyone else into helping. If I can, happy days. If I can't, then it's just going to be some very I wouldn't say tedious, because I actually enjoyed the whole digging side of things. What I am going to want though is a whole bunch of chests. God, I'm severely lacking chests as well, which is annoying. But this is gonna like tear up a lot of resources. Well, not resources, but it's gonna pull up a lot of resources. I'm also gonna want to get down there and set up a beacon all the way up until I get up to the geodes, because the last thing I want to do is actually accidentally go breaking any of the budding ones. And also I need to do some testing, because I don't know if pistons actually break budding ones or if flying machines do. And I don't know if slime blocks sort of stick to them. Like, will they break if slime blocks stick to them and try to pull them along? Or is that not what am I getting stuck on? Or is that not an issue and I need to worry about? But either way, let's jump into time lapse of me digging this thing down, and we will come back when I've got an idea of how I actually want this to work. Alright guys, so around about 16 to 17 hours worth of digging. No other lie, it is probably the most tedious thing, having to dig through this much deep slate by hand. It's going to be the last time that I do it until I forget how tedious it actually is. It just takes really long. So like the stone layers, you can get through like 2 layers of the stone within around about 5 to 10 minutes. To get through 2 layers of deep slate is around about 20 to 30 minutes. It's literally like double as long, and it just feels like you're making no progress. So I was doing it in like 4-hour increments, just digging and digging until I cleared out the geodes. I made sure that I cleared, when I got up to a geode, I clear out the geode and around about a 4-block radius around each one, and then I continue digging down the layers, just purely because the haste beacon will tear straight through the geodes themselves. But now comes the fun part of actually designing the farm for this thing. So what I'm going to do is get a copy of this area and paste it into my test world, and start thinking of a sort of plan on how I actually want to do this. By the way, completely overkill. I didn't have to dig out all of this entire thing all the way down. I could have easily have just done the area around the geodes, but yeah, there's also a spawner that I don't know what to do. It's a skelly spawner. Not too sure what to do with that, but nevertheless, let's hop into a test world and start figuring out how we want this farm to actually function. Alright, so after tinkering around for a good few hours in a test world, pasted the hole in its entirety, which, yeah, not enjoyable. Messing around with this, as you can see, I am going to go with the flying machine design. So what I'm having to do is pretty much I set up an area sort of like this, what I've got demonstrated just below us here, where I line up all the different glass blocks with the areas that are not the actual geodes, because if a flying machine hits or a piston hits the geode, it will destroy the budding amethyst. I keep on saying geode, the budding amethyst. Yeah, budding amethyst. So I'm sort of doing a glass outline of where I need the actual flying machines themselves to be. Obviously, there's no way in ensuring that we cover every single angle, not unless I was to do a third array of flying machines going in a vertical axis, and even then there's going to be some that are impossible to hit. There's like ones that are completely shrouded. This one is... No, this one should actually be one that's got. So we've just got them activated by the note blocks at the moment. They will be hooked up to like a timing circuit. So all of them are sort of individual, and this side alone's got, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on this side, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on that side. So they're all sort of independent from one another, and I've had to make sure that they don't actually stick to one another as well, which is extremely difficult, to be honest with you. Some of them just look crazy weird as well from the angle and shapes. Like, there was this section here of 2 that I was not able to get. Oh, for God's sake, that one's actually just got stuck on that glass block. Can we get glazed? Glazed. Do that. And then just reactivate you. No! Okay, that's fine. Observer. Wait, I said observer. There we go. So there is a section just here which has 2 or 3. One of them does get hit by this one coming across there, but these 2 do not get hit because I could not join this fly machine and this fly machine, so I couldn't have a block here. Because if there was a slime block here, it meant that, which one was it? I think it was this one that would have went over capacity, and it would have got stuck on something else. Oh yeah, this block here. So this budding amethyst is stopping me from getting these 2 clusters there, and there are a couple here that also don't get hit, and that's because this flying machine and this flying machine needed a partition gap, and I can't have a concrete block because obviously the slime blocks will then get stuck on concrete block, like each one trying to take it along with it. Yeah, it's taken a lot of trial and error in order to get these in a way that they function completely independent from one another. And then after I finish doing this, I'm then going to have to work out a timing circuit, because obviously we can't have this side going across back and forth while this side is going, because they will collide and intercept one another. But this is pretty much what I'm doing at the moment, is trying to work out fly machines incorporated in this mess. So we can actually have a block there, which means if we have our fly machine in the middle of probably these ones, have them in the middle here is where we want our fly machine. So I'll just give you a quick demonstration on how I'm doing this. I also don't know if the fly machines can move note blocks, so I've been making sure, just in case they can, to back them up with a piece of crying obsidian. And then we build our fly machine, so it's just a observer, sticky piston, 2 slime blocks, and then the exact same going this way. So observer, sticky piston, and 2 slime blocks. And then we need to make sure on the other side that we've also got that going on. So we want to go over here, find the observer, which is just there, do that, note block, and then crying obsidian, and then normal obsidian there. That's to stop it from flying through that wall or getting jammed on anything. And then we start playing around with the actual shape of how we want this thing to go. So the weight load on each piston can only push a maximum of 12 blocks, and already is pushing 4 blocks. So this piston is actually pushing these 2 slime blocks, this observer and this sticky piston, which means we've got 8 more blocks to work with. And that means that we need to be a little bit careful, because we can't, if we have, say, 1, 2, so that's 4, 5, 6, let's go 7, 8, 8, 9, 10, then we can't have anything there, so I think that side's sort of good. And then this top one, we probably want it coming up, so that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. Let's go 10. We don't actually need one there. And 11. And then 12 on that side. And then after we've got that all lined up, what we can do is break the glass of the ones that we've actually got. Like so. Like so. Like so. And then M3, that one, these and that. I do believe that is that one sort of cleared. Let's get our glazed terracotta. Let's cap them off because we've got to make sure the slime blocks don't stick to them. And let's see if this one actually works without taking anything out with it. And clearance looks good. And then it should dock just there. And then we need to make sure obviously that where it is docked we have no oh yeah, I forgot it does that. We need to make sure that the slime blocks are obviously not going to get stuck on the deep slate, so we are actually going to have to replace them walls. But that is one fly machine out of, I'm assuming it's going to be more than 5 on this side because it's a much bigger geode. So probably about another 1 here, 2, 3, 4, probably 6 fly machines in total. And it's probably going to be 6 on this side as well. So, yeah, hopefully that sort of, you understood the tediousness of doing this. Building flight machines that are just ridiculously shaped. I don't know if there's a better way of doing this. I was initially toying with the concept of just having loads of pistons set up in different arrays in order to, but then what was happening is that when I did test that out is that the pistons were actually making the clusters get stuck on the pistons themselves as they was like breaking the clusters. They are called clusters, aren't they? Yeah, clusters. As I was breaking the clusters, the like actual shards was just getting stuck on top of the actual budding amethyst. So it wasn't really working out as well as the fly machines. The fly machines, provided they do 1 trip back and then 1 trip, well, 1 trip forward and 1 trip back, it means that any of the shards that do land on the budding amethyst tend to get knocked off on their way back. And I've got about 3 blocks or 4 blocks clearance underneath this bottom one here in order to have a water collection system, and then we can focus on decorating afterwards. But let me carry on doing this, and then we could just jump straight into a time lapse of me building this monstrosity in survival. Alright guys, so it didn't actually take too long to build, and resource wise it wasn't actually overly intensive. Like all of the deep slate coming up here was just stuff that I'd mined down there. I did use purple glazed terracotta down below just to sort of make it a little bit smoother rather than having the big chunky fly machines. There is one thing that would have made my life a whole lot easier when making this. That would be, first of all, a parachute, because I popped about 4 totems falling down this hole. But the fact that I completely forgot that you can actually have simultaneous fly machines next to one another if you just alternate between slime blocks and honey blocks. It took me so long working out the flying machines so that they weren't going to interact with one another, so the blocks wouldn't get stuck to one another, making sure that so there's like some of the crystals that obviously I wasn't able to get without that happening. And it isn't a lot of them, to be honest with you, and because I'm not having a flying machine coming downwards and then back up, because I want it to have an open top just so that you can sort of look down on it. That's more of a cosmetic choice rather than a functional choice. But nevertheless, we've got everything in place, so now we can actually give it a test run to see if it does actually work. So what we can do is, say, put a button on this side here, and then hit this, see if all of these go flying. Okay, so all the flying machines took off. Make sure that there's no glazed terracotta in the way, and they have all bounced back, and then they should all sit nicely back in their sort of docking areas. Awesome. So that all seemed to have worked fine. I was a little bit worried that that is obviously not ideal, but that's going to be a very, very rare instance. Let's just pick up all of these, see how much we actually got. Come on. Obviously we're going to have a collection system. I'm not planning on walking around and picking these up after every single harvest, but for the time being. And then, so that is that side working fine. Now we can test this side. Do that. Okay, so they've all left okay. We can get rid of our light matica. And they are all flying back alright. Which is awesome. Nothing's got stuck or broken. Great. So there is obviously going to be a couple of little teething issues. One is the geodes that are up there right towards the edge. These ones back here, we are obviously going to have some loss because they're going to get shot through the gaps. But what I may try to do is have like a miniature water tray up higher on this side, and then have them being washed into the main central water tray which we're going to be having. But other than that, we are now happy to link this bad boy up to our timing circuit. The timing circuit, I was having quite a lot of trouble trying to figure out, as in I wasn't 100% sure how to wire it up. Like, I know how to do timers, but timers, trying to figure out the correct length of time for the actual circuit and then implement it in a compact redstone clock. So because I could not, but by the time after figuring out the flying machines, my brain was fried. So I looked online for the most sort of best time to have this thing sort of functioning, as in the sort of lowest amount of time that the majority of our clusters are going to be grown at. We can actually do that as well. And it worked out, I think it's 167 minutes is the optimal amount of time for the budding amethyst to grow full clusters on, in order to then trigger a harvest. So I've expanded that to, I do believe it's 180 minutes per cycle rather than 167, just to be on the safe side. If there are any lagging sort of game ticks or anything, it will sort of adjust itself for that. And the clock itself I'm using is sort of designed by Ilmango, using a combination of a hopper clock as well as a hopper dropper clock. So you've got one sort of ticking off the other. So each time this hopper clock runs through its 4 stacks and 49 items, it will then allow one item to go from this dropper into this hopper. And then the system will only kick on after this dropper has completely emptied into this hopper. So then it will sort of reset itself and go back the other way, and then it will sort of make the redstone torch on this side here go on and off. and I've linked one side up to it being active and one side linked up to it being inactive. So this one will obviously power down once this redstone torch goes off rather than on, which means when this goes on, this side will then get activated, this one will become deactive, so this piston will then come down, and then when this then goes off, I'm powering this redstone torch will go on and it will send a signal through this torch tower, activating this side of fly machines. It was the best way that I could think of making sure that one side wasn't getting activated at the same time as the other side. And yeah, that's like the best sort of solution. That way one will be flying in the middle of the other one's cycle. So it will be about 180 minutes, about 3 hours. So after about an hour and a half, one side will fly, then another hour and a half, the other side will fly, another hour and a half, that side will fly. Although I'm not too sure if that's going to be the best course of action, thinking about it, because some of these do actually sort of couple with one another, as in some of the top side and bottom side clusters do get knocked off by both these flying machines and these flying machines. So after one goes off for an hour and a half, they're obviously not going to be grown, which means I may actually have to rethink my timing circuit. What I can do is set these up to a secondary clock, so when it does activate, it will send a signal on one side straight away, and then it will send a really, really long delayed signal to the other side. Is probably going to be the best bet for that. But nevertheless, from one average harvest, let me just pick up these guys. Like, this is not going to be a massively profitable farm because obviously we're not using Fortune 3 on any of the clusters, so we're not getting nearly as many of the Amethyst shards. But the fact that it can be running completely automatic whenever this area is loaded, so we'll get around about nearly 6 stacks per oh my god, words. We'll get roughly 6 stacks of shards per cycle, which isn't the worst in the world. I am going to have to start clearing up all of this area though. So what I will do is I will sort out a different timing circuit, because now that I've talked it through with you, thinking of it, obviously I am going to run into that issue where one side's going to be taken off the bottom clusters an hour and a half rather than 3 hours into the cycle before they're fully grown, and that shouldn't be too difficult to implement. What I can do, it shouldn't be too bad actually. What I can do is just send like a complete zigzag of I could just do an extended repeater, or yeah, either that or I can do a comparator pulse extender timer, so then when one side gets activated it will then sort of prolong the other side before the other side gets activated. But I'll think about that. What I'm going to do now is actually change the timing circuit, move all of these up top, sort out the water tray, because what I also do need to do is find a way of linking this guy up to our main storage system, which is SRB farm. That is not that one. So we need to link it up to this water column here in order to get fed through into our main storage system. Yeah, which isn't going to be the easiest because it's so much further down. It's going to be interesting. So yeah, I'm going to do that and sort out the water tray, the collection and the timing circuit. Probably do a glass layer at the top. I won't be doing a building on top during this episode because we are way over our time. So let's just have a little bit of a jump cut between me and actually getting this stuff done. Alright, so after some changes, it may look like a little bit of a mess, but it's actually relatively simple. I got rid of the inverted sort of negative redstone torch system, so one side isn't activating in the mid-stroke of the other side. I've got them running off of the same redstone torch. The signal comes this way and sets off this side of fly machines first of all. When it does that, the signal then bounces around this very delayed circuit before extending this piston. But before that happens, the power goes through this repeater and lights up this comparator sort of timeout clock. and then this will keep this repeater locked for long enough for the flying machines to make it all the way back to this side before unlocking, letting the signal through and activating this side of flying machines. So it works fine. I did test it a few times just to make sure there was no collision. The timing is pretty close, as in this side lands in its docking station around about 2 seconds before this side then starts going. But it does work, which is all happy days. I've now I do believe I've turned it back. Yeah, I have turned it back on. So the timer is running, and I've got Steve over here. I've done a water collection system. We are going to get a little bit lost because I've hit the bedrock layer, so I can't go any lower than this without having to remove bedrock, which means there's tiny little gaps, so I've had to obviously separate the water streams, which means if any items do come down the water exactly on these points, they will then land on that point, and obviously not being carried by the water, they won't get washed down. But there's only, I think, 2 little gaps in this whole length here, which isn't too much of a worry, and one of them's all the way on this side where there isn't really much in line, barring a couple of clusters. So I'm not overly concerned about a tiny little bit of loss. Like, it's not going to be the biggest farm that's like kicking out immense amounts of shards anyway. I will see, like, I'm going to leave Steve AFK over here overnight. Oh, there I am, just up there looking down. I'm going to leave him AFK up until I think it's like 2 AM when our service restarts. So it's around about 6 or so hours away from now, which means we'll get to see what a couple of runs of this will then kick out and make sure that it all runs fine. This then goes down this very long water stream going all the way along here, and then I've lowered that elevator to come all the way down to there, and then it links up with the other items which are coming in from our melon and pumpkin farm, which then get fed through the system, and I've added them onto item frames that we can't see because we're not in render range of it. Let's grab you two, because you two are actually going to have to be put away. Let's fly on over to here. So I've linked them into the same sort of storage system. I'm not going to bother taking up one of our spots for the shulker loaders, because quite frankly, with how slow of a farm it's going to be, I don't think it's going to fill up the 2 rows of double chests that I've got set up here. So what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would be like 12 double chests it would have to fill before it even gets through to that section. So I'm not overly concerned. We have still got loads of items flowing into our melon and pumpkin. And what we can actually do is have Steve put somewhere in here instead, because provided that he's 128 blocks away from the farm, like within 128 blocks, it doesn't really matter if he's over here or not. At least if he's over here, he'll also have the melon and pumpkin farm loaded. So he'll have the amethyst farm as well as the melon and pumpkin farm loaded, because as you can see from over here, we have still got this within render range, which is perfectly fine. It's all happy days. But that is the end of our amethyst farm project. There's a few little hiccups that if I was to do it all over again, I would definitely make changes and alterations. On the bright side of digging it all out, we've got that sort of view piece that looks down, and we've also got 45 deep slate diamond door and 46 normal diamonds that I've rescued from that dig site, as well as copious amounts of other resources which I will at some point shoulder up and bring over to our storage system. Now, with that project over and done with, it's another one off of our board. It's one that I was not really looking forward to because I knew how much of a tedious process, but having done it, I definitely now know if I was to do it again, there are obviously changes that I would make. One being, I would remember the fact that you can actually have 2 separate flying machines of honey blocks and slime blocks next to one another. Let's start this on the spin, because we want to get this thing sort of choosing as quick as possible. Really? That was very quick. So we're on, it's along the corridor upstairs, so it's anywhere along this line here. And spin you again. That was like the quickest spin I've ever had on this machine. That was ridiculously quick. So yeah, let's see where this lands. And we are on number 8, which is the very top there. Let's grab these. And an ancient sea project. You know what? We've not actually worked over there for a while, so I don't actually mind that. Happy days. Let's just grab. Oh, fisticuffs. That's always a fun one. It means that I'm not allowed to use any weapons other than my fist if it lands on that. Oh my god, if I get, like, the more of these I add, the more chances there are of me getting negative effects on the following project. And if I get numerous of them in a row, so imagine having leather armor and fisticuffs, so I'm only allowed to play it in leather armor and not use any weapons of any kind other than my fist. It is going to be brutal depending on what the project is. And yeah, so that's probably going to be it for today's episode. Now, let me throw you all in there. You can go in there and you can go in there. And you are going to be our active project, which we are now putting over here. Take our Amethyst one out, Ancient City, completed projects, and that is going to be another farm done and dusted. It does mean that I can actually get out of this purple outfit because, quite frankly, it's not my favourite. I do like it, but it's definitely not my optimal one that I would pick. So let's put you onto there, put you onto there, put you onto there, and do I want... I'll put a hat down there, I'll put a helmet on here. Awesome. Now, because we're going to be doing an Ancient City one, we're probably going to want to go for the... It's either going to be the Vex or the all-white one over there. I want to go with the Vex one because I've not actually wore this on set yet, and we've got some angel wings to go along with it. Happy days. You obviously aren't going to be going on us. You can come on, and you can come on. Yay, now it looks like we've got giant white eyebrows. But nevertheless, I think that is definitely going to do it for today's project. Oh my god, this has been a long one. I do apologise if the video's gone on quite a bit, but very little I could do about that. It's just the project and the ins and outs. I'll try to cut it down as much as I can and cut out as well whatever I can possibly cut out. But hopefully you enjoyed it nonetheless, and hopefully I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye bye.